Sarah Chen wiped the sweat from her forehead, leaving a streak of engine grease in its place. The setting Montana sun painted her workshop in shades of amber, glinting off the experimental aircraft parts scattered across her workbench. Most mechanics wouldn't touch the cutting-edge prototypes that found their way to her remote shop, but Sarah had built her reputation on solving the impossible. The radio crackled with static before switching to another rerun of the emergency broadcast. 3 days of mysterious atmospheric disturbances had the scientific community buzzing and the military on edge. Sarah ignored it, focusing instead on the delicate circuitry of the quantum stabilizer in front of her. The technology was supposedly classified, but out here in the middle of nowhere, people cared more about results than security clearances. The first sign that something was wrong came when her coffee cup started vibrating. Then came the sound, a high-pitched whine that set her teeth on edge. Sarah stepped outside, tools still in hand, and looked up. The twilight sky had torn open, revealing something that defied explanation. A ship, if you could call it that, was plummeting through the atmosphere. Its hull gleamed with an otherworldly iridescence, trailing plasma and what looked like liquid starlight. The vessel was bleeding energy in a way that Sarah's engineer's mind immediately recognized as catastrophic. Without intervention, it would disintegrate before it hit the ground. "Well," Sarah muttered, grabbing her emergency kit, "this is definitely going to void someone's warranty." The ship crashed 2 miles from her workshop, carving a trench through the prairie grass. By the time Sarah reached it in her beat-up truck, the hull was covered in a web of fractures that pulsed with internal light. The design was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Organic curves blended seamlessly with crystalline structures that seemed to defy physics. A panel on the side of the vessel shimmered and became transparent, revealing the pilot within. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The being was humanoid but clearly alien, with silvery skin that rippled like mercury and features that seemed to shift subtly when she wasn't looking directly at them. The alien was slumped over the controls, dark fluid seeping from several wounds. Sarah had exactly 3 seconds to make a decision that would change human history. She could call the authorities, or... She pulled out her plasma torch and got to work. The hull material responded to heat in ways that defied conventional engineering. It wasn't metal, wasn't ceramic, wasn't anything Sarah had ever encountered. But after 30 minutes of careful observation and experimentation, she began to understand its properties. The fractures weren't random. They followed a pattern that reminded her of circuit boards. When she traced them with her tools, they began to seal themselves. "You're not just a ship," she whispered. "You're alive." A soft chime emanated from the vessel, and Sarah felt a gentle pressure in her mind, like someone trying to politely get her attention. The transparent panel dissolved, and the alien pilot stirred. Its eyes opened, all 4 of them, revealing pupils that sparkled like galaxies in miniature. "Medical assistance required," the alien said in perfect English, though Sarah noticed its mouth didn't move. "Diplomatic immunity protocols engage. Classification: Priority Alpha." Sarah looked at the alien, then at her tools, then back at the alien. "I'm just a mechanic," she said. The alien's eyes flickered with what might have been amusement. "Precisely. I am Ambassador Excelfor of the Collective. My ship's neural matrix indicates you have already begun repairs using previously unknown techniques. Your species continues to surprise us." Sarah's mind raced with questions, but her hands were already moving, adapting her tools to the task. "Your ship's bleeding energy through these conduits. I can reroute it through secondary systems, but I'll need to understand how your tech works." "The knowledge is restricted," Xelfor said, then winced as more dark fluid seeped from their wombs. "But perhaps necessity outweighs protocol. You have shown both skill and compassion. The Collective's diplomatic course will be interested in both." Over the next few hours, Sarah learned more about advanced technology than most humans would discover in a lifetime. The ship wasn't just a vessel. It was a semi-sentient entity capable of reconfiguring itself at the molecular level. The fractures in its hull were actually emergency adaptations, attempts to prevent a complete systemic failure. As she worked, Selthor explained their mission. They were part of a diplomatic delegation headed to a crucial peace conference. The fate of several civilizations hung in the balance. The attack that had damaged their ship was no accident. There were forces that wanted the conference to fail. The government agents arrived exactly 12 minutes after Selthor's departure. Sarah counted 5 black SUVs and 2 military helicopters, their rotors whipping the prairie grass into a frenzy. She stood calmly by her truck, hands visible, still holding the alien equivalent of a socket wrench. "Ma'am, I'm Agent Walker with the Department of Special Technologies," a tall woman in a dark suit announced, striding forward. "We detected some unusual energy signatures in this area. Care to explain?" Sarah looked at the wrench in her hand, its crystalline structure still pulsing faintly with otherworldly energy. She had exactly one chance to play this right. "Actually," she said, "I was hoping you could explain something to me first. When did the U.S. government start using quantum-locked plasma conduits in their aircraft designs?" Agent Walker's carefully neutral expression flickered. Sarah pressed her advantage. "Because I've got to tell you, the energy efficiency is impressive, but your containment protocols need work. Lucky for you, I think I've figured out how to stabilize them." 2 hours later, Sarah sat in a makeshift command center, surrounded by scientists and military personnel, all clamoring to understand what she'd learned. She fed them carefully crafted half-truths, describing the technology in terms of theoretical papers she'd read while working on experimental aircraft. It wasn't entirely a lie. She had worked on classified projects before. She just omitted the part about her recent crash course in alien engineering. "The energy signature was unlike anything we've seen," one scientist insisted, showing her complex readings on a tablet. "How did you manage to contain it?" Sarah pointed to a particular wave pattern. "See how it resonates. Reminds me of quantum harmonics in experimental engine designs. I just applied similar principles, adapted some tools. Nothing revolutionary." She smiled innocently. "Though I'd love to consult on future projects if you're interested." As the day wore on, Sarah began to understand the game she was playing. Every answer she gave spawned new questions, but also established her credentials as someone too valuable to simply disappear into a black site. By sunset, she had a new consulting contract with the Department of Special Technologies and a security clearance that would make most Pentagon officials envious. But it wasn't until she returned to her workshop that night that she discovered Selthor's real gift. The alien wrench she'd held onto started vibrating, projecting a holographic message only she could see. "Mechanic Sarah Chen," Selthor's voice echoed in her mind, "you have proven yourself both resourceful and trustworthy. The collective requires your further assistance. The peace conference approaches, but there are complications. Your world stands at a crossroads, though few realize it. Will you help us navigate this delicate machinery of diplomacy?" The hologram shifted, revealing technical specifications for something massive in Earth's orbit. Sarah's eyes widened as she recognized the structure. A diplomatic vessel, large enough to host representatives from dozens of civilizations. According to the specs, it was failing. "Of course it is," Sarah muttered, already reaching for her tools. "Because the universe has a sense of humor." Over the next few days, Sarah lived a double life. By day, she consulted with government scientists, helping them understand the theoretical principles behind the energy signatures they detected. By night, she worked in secret, using Selthor's knowledge to modify her workshop equipment for tasks that would have seemed impossible a week ago. The alien technology responded to her in ways that defied explanation. It was as if the machines themselves recognized her understanding, her respect for their complexity. She began to see patterns in the technical data Selthor had left her, hints of a larger design that both thrilled and terrified her. "The diplomatic vessel's quantum core is destabilizing," she explained to thin air one night, knowing Selthor would receive her message through the modified tools. "But it's not random." Someone's been sabotaging it systematically, targeting the containment fields that keep the artificial gravity stable. If it fails during the conference, her workshop hummed with energy as she worked, ordinary tools taking on extraordinary capabilities under her modifications. She was pushing the boundaries of both human and alien engineering, creating hybrid solutions that neither civilization had imagined possible. But she wasn't the only one making discoveries. Agent Walker started asking more pointed questions, her visits to the workshop becoming more frequent. The woman's sharp eyes missed nothing, including the subtle changes in Sarah's equipment. Interesting modifications, Walker commented one afternoon, running a finger along a transformed welding torch. Doesn't look like any DST technology I'm familiar with. Sarah kept her voice steady. When you work with experimental tech, you learn to improvise. Sometimes the best solutions aren't in any manual. Walker's smile didn't reach her eyes. You know what I find fascinating about you, Ms. Chen. Your ability to understand complex systems goes beyond mere mechanical aptitude. It's almost as if you've had extra guidance. Before Sarah could respond, her tools began vibrating in a familiar pattern. Urgent. Something was wrong with the diplomatic vessel. She needed to act fast, but Walker was watching her like a hawk. The agent's phone buzzed. As she checked it, her expression hardened. Multiple anomalies detected in high orbit. Care to explain? Sarah looked at her modified tools, then at Walker, and made a decision. Actually, yes, but you're probably going to want to sit down for this part, and maybe call your superiors. Because what I'm about to tell you changes everything we think we know about humanity's place in the galaxy. She picked up the alien wrench, which now glowed with unmistakable power. The question is, Agent Walker, are you ready to help fix something a lot bigger than a broken engine? Agent Walker's response to Sarah's revelation was not what anyone might have expected. After 30 seconds of tense silence, she pulled out her own piece of alien technology, a communication device nearly identical to the one Sarah had been using. Well, Walker said, her stern demeanor melting into something more complex, it seems we've both been keeping secrets for the collective. Sarah's modified wrench hummed in recognition of Walker's device. You're a liaison. Have been for the past 5 years. Walker's lips quirked into a small smile. Though I have to admit, none of our official contacts have ever managed to repair quantum matrices quite like you did. The collective's been watching your work with great interest. The revelation should have been reassuring. Instead, it sent a chill down Sarah's spine. If you're their official contact, why did they need me to fix Self-Forward ship? Why all the secrecy? Walker's expression darkened. Because someone within the collective's diplomatic corps is working to sabotage the peace conference. We couldn't trust the official channels. Self-Forward took a calculated risk, crash landing near someone with both the skills and the integrity to help. Sarah's workshop computer suddenly lit up with incoming data. The diplomatic vessel's quantum core was becoming increasingly unstable. Mathematical models predicted catastrophic failure within 48 hours, just as the peace conference was set to begin. The saboteur's clever, Sarah muttered, studying the readings. They've modified the containment fields to look stable during standard diagnostics. But see these harmonic fluctuations. They're building towards a cascade failure that'll look like an accident. Walker nodded grimly. An accident that could spark an interstellar war. 3 different species attending this conference have historical grievances. If their representatives die in what appears to be a technical failure, they'll blame each other, Sarah finished, and humanity would be caught in the crossfire. She turned to her workbench, mind already racing through possibilities. But if we can prove it was sabotage, we need to repair the quantum core first, Walker insisted. Without stabilization, any evidence we find will be destroyed in the explosion. Can you fix it? Sarah's hands moved across her modified tools, making rapid calculations. Not from here. The adjustments need to be made on site. Which means you're going up there. Walker was already reaching for her secure phone. I'll arrange transport. How much of your equipment do you need? The next 6 hours were a blur of preparation. Sarah packed her modified tools while Walker made calls to what she called interested parties within various governments. The cover story was simple. Sarah Chen, brilliant engineer, had been recruited to consult on an unclassified International Space Station project. The truth was far more complex. As Sarah's private jet approached a remote launch facility in the Pacific, she received another message from Xelfor. The holographic specifications showed her exactly what she'd be facing. A quantum core unlike anything humanity had imagined, powered by principles that challenged physics itself. The core isn't just unstable, Sarah explained to Walker as they suited up for the journey. It's been deliberately miscalibrated to affect specific areas of the diplomatic vessel. Look at these resonance patterns. They're targeting the conference chambers of 3 particular species. The ones with historical grievances, Walker confirmed. Can you reverse the damage? Sarah's modified tools hummed with possibility. Better. I think I can trace the sabotage back to its source. These quantum fluctuations carry something like a signature, like tool marks on a conventional engine. If we can identify who made them. The launch window was tight. As their transport vessel approached the diplomatic ship, Sarah got her first real look at the scale of what humanity had stumbled into. The vessel was massive, it tall, shimmering with the same alive but not alive quality she'd seen in Xelfor's ship. Multiple alien craft surrounded it, representatives from dozens of civilizations arriving for the conference. Remember, Walker briefed her as they prepared to dock. Most species here don't know humanity has any official contact with the collective. Your presence will be controversial. Sarah checked her tools one last time. Good thing I'm just a mechanic then. Nobody pays much attention to the person fixing things in the background. The diplomatic vessel's docking bay was a riot of alien activity. Representatives from at least 15 different species hurried about their business, some humanoid, others decidedly not. Sarah kept her head down, following Walker through corridors that seemed to shift and reshape themselves as they walked. They reached the engineering section just as another alarm sounded. The quantum core's containment was deteriorating faster than predicted. Sarah could feel the vibrations through her boots. The whole ship was humming at exactly the wrong frequency. This is worse than we thought, she said, scanning the core with her modified tools. The saboteur didn't just misdirect the energy. They've created a quantum knot, multiple failure points linked together. If one goes, they all go, Walker finished. How long? Sarah's calculations were interrupted by a new presence in the room. A tall crystalline being stepped out of what had appeared to be a solid wall, its internal structure glowing with patterns Sarah recognized from her work on Xelfor's ship. The human mechanic. The being's thoughts resonated in Sarah's mind. I am Chief Engineer Zixa. Your reputation precedes you. Though I must admit, your presence here raises questions. Sarah straightened up, mind racing. This was it, the moment that could either save the conference or doom it. She looked at her tools, then at the quantum core, and made a decision that would change the course of multiple civilizations. Questions are good, she said, stepping forward. They're how we learn. And right now, I have a very important one. Would you like to help me catch a saboteur? Chief Engineer Zix's crystalline form pulsed with colors as they processed Sarah's offer. The quantum core behind them groaned ominously, its containment fields flickering with increasing instability. You claim sabotage, Zix's thoughts resonated. Yet you offer no proof. And you are human. The last word carried layers of meaning, curiosity, suspicion, and something like hope. Sarah held up her modified wrench, letting its alien energy patterns sync with the ship's systems. I'm a mechanic. Want proof? Watch this. She pressed the tool against a nearby console, and holographic displays erupted around them, showing the quantum core's internal structure in devastating detail. See these resonance patterns? They're artificial. Someone's turned your own containment protocols against you, creating a quantum cascade that'll trigger when all the diplomatic delegations are in position. Her fingers traced the energy flows, highlighting the saboteur's work. It's elegant, actually. Horrible, but elegant. Zix's crystalline structure shifted, new facets forming as they analyzed the data. These modifications, they bear signs of collective engineering principles, yet you understand them. How? Because machines want to work, Sarah said, repeating what she'd told Excelfor. Doesn't matter if they're human or alien. They have a logic to them. You just have to listen. She pointed to a particular energy signature. And right now, your cord is screaming for help. The ship shuddered, and new alarms joined the chorus. Walker's communicator chirped urgently. The delegates are arriving early. Someone's accelerated the schedule. Sarah's mind raced. They're forcing our hand. Once everyone's aboard. She turned to Zixa. I can stabilize the core, but I need access to your primary engineering systems. And we need to track down whoever did this before they can trigger a manual cascade. Zix's colors swirled in what might have been decision. The human will have access, they announced. But I will monitor all modifications. A pause then, and assist where needed. What followed was the most intense engineering challenge of Sarah's life. Working with Zixa, she began tracing the quantum knots that threatened to tear the ship apart. Each solution revealed new complications, a deadly puzzle that required both human intuition and alien expertise to unravel. The saboteur knew what they were doing, Sarah muttered, deep in the ship's systems. These aren't just random damages. They're a signature, Zixa finished, their crystalline form resonating with Sarah's tools. Each engineer's work carries patterns, like your human fingerprints. These modifications, their colors darkened. I recognize them. Before they could elaborate, the ship's internal gravity shifted. Sarah grabbed a support beam as the floor seemed to tilt. Through the viewports, she could see diplomatic vessels approaching, representatives from dozens of species arriving for the conference. We're out of time, Walker announced. The delegates are boarding. Sarah, tell me you can stop this. Sarah's modified tools hummed with possibility as she studied the quantum core's fluctuating patterns. I can stabilize it. But she looked at Zixa. You said you recognized the work. Who? The crystalline engineer's colors pulsed with distress. Third Architect Krell. My mentor. The one who taught me the principles of quantum engineering. Where would they be now? Sarah demanded. If they wanted to ensure the cascade couldn't be stopped. The Auxiliary Control Center, Zixa and Walker said simultaneously. Sarah made a decision. Walker, take security and find Krell. Zixa, I need you here. We have to stabilize this core before. Another violent shudder ran through the ship. Warning lights flashed as the quantum cascade began. They were out of time. Go, Sarah told them. I've got this. As Walker and Zixa rushed out, Sarah turned to the quantum core, her tools ready. What she was about to attempt would either save everyone aboard or, well, physics would get creative about how it expressed its disapproval. She began to work, her movements precise despite the ship's increasing instability. The quantum knots were ingenious. Each attempt to untie one pulled others tighter. But Sarah had learned from working on Excelfor's ship. Sometimes the best solution wasn't to untie the knot, but to change the rules about how it could exist. Her modified tools interfaced with the ship's systems in ways their creator had never intended. Human ingenuity met alien technology, creating solutions that neither civilization had imagined possible. As delegates gathered in the conference chambers above, Sarah Chen rewrote the laws of quantum mechanics through pure mechanical intuition. The ship groaned, its structure stressed by forces that shouldn't exist in normal space. Sarah's tools grew hot in her hands as she pushed them beyond their limits. She could feel the quantum cascade building, seeking release. Through the ship's systems, she sensed Walker and security forces converging on the Auxiliary Control Center. They would either catch Krell or they wouldn't. Sarah's job was to ensure there was still a ship left either way. Come on, she whispered to the quantum core, her hands dancing across its controls. Work with me here. Show me what you want to be. The core's light shifted, its patterns aligning with her modifications. For a moment, Sarah felt connected to something vast and beautiful, the underlying mathematics that governed reality itself. In that moment, she understood exactly what needed to be done. She had one chance to get it right. If she succeeded, she would save thousands of lives and possibly prevent an interstellar war. If she failed, Sarah Chen took a deep breath, adjusted her grip on her tools, and began the final sequence. Above her, the fate of multiple civilizations hung in the balance. But right now, she was just a mechanic with a job to do. And she was very, very good at her job. Time seemed to slow as Sarah initiated her final sequence. Her modified tools interfaced with the quantum core, channeling energies that human science had barely begun to theorize about. The ship's systems responded to her touch, recognizing in her work something that transcended species and culture, the fundamental drive to make things whole. Core containment at 12%, the ship's AI announced dispassionately. Cascade failure imminent. Sarah's hands moved with surgical precision, implementing a solution that was equal parts physics and intuition. She wasn't just trying to stop the cascade. She was going to use it. Come on, she whispered to the quantum core. Show them what you can really do. The saboteurs' quantum knots had been designed to tear the ship apart, but Sarah had recognized something in their pattern, a possibility that even their creator hadn't seen. Each knot wasn't just a potential point of failure. It was a connector, a node in a vast network of quantum relationships. As the cascade reached its critical point, Sarah didn't fight it. Instead, she redirected it, transforming the destructive energy into something entirely new. The quantum core blazed with impossible light as her modifications took hold. Throughout the diplomatic vessel, something extraordinary happened. The quantum network she created linked every chamber, every section, every delegate's quarters. For a brief moment, everyone aboard experienced the same connection Sarah had felt, the pure mathematics of reality, the underlying unity of all things. Security team to engineering. Walker's voice crackled over the comm. We have Krell in custody. Sarah, tell me you've got the core under control. Sarah checked her readings and allowed herself a small smile. Better than that. The cascade's been contained, but you might want to get down here. There's something everyone needs to see. The quantum core had stabilized, but not in any way its designers had intended. Sarah's modifications had transformed it into something unprecedented, a bridge between technologies, between species, between ways of understanding the universe itself. When Walker arrived with Krell in custody, the former Third Architect's crystalline form was dim with defeat. But as they saw what Sarah had done to their sabotage, their colors shifted in what might have been astonishment. Impossible, Krell's thoughts resonated. The quantum knots should have torn everything apart. Sarah finished. Instead, they'd brought it together. Your work was brilliant, Architect. You just used it for the wrong purpose. The diplomatic conference chamber was chaos as delegates tried to understand what had happened. Sarah's quantum network had given them all a glimpse of connection, of possibility. Species that had been on the brink of war found themselves considering peace not as a political necessity, but as a natural state. Zelthor appeared in the engineering section, their mercurial form rippling with what Sarah had learned to recognize as joy. The collective suspected humanity's potential, they said. But you have exceeded all expectations, Mechanic Chen. Sarah shrugged, though pride warmed her chest. I just did what needed doing. Though I have to admit, this is a bit more complicated than fixing Mrs. Anderson's tractor back home. The aftermath of the crisis brought changes no one had anticipated. Sarah's quantum network became the foundation for a new kind of diplomatic technology, one that allowed different species to understand each other at a fundamental level. The human mechanic who had created it became a symbol of what was possible when technology served understanding rather than division. The collective would like to offer you a position, Zelthor told her later, as they stood in her workshop back on Earth. technical advisor to the diplomatic corps. Your unique perspective would be invaluable. Sarah looked around at her tools, at the hybrid of human and alien technology she created. "I'd like that," she said, "but I have conditions. First, Earth gets a real seat at the diplomatic table. No more shadows and secrets. Second, I keep my workshop. Sometimes the best thinking happens in familiar places. And third," Sarah picked up her modified wrench, which now hummed with possibilities she was only beginning to understand. "Third, we start a program. Find more mechanics, engineers, problem solvers from every species. Because the universe is full of broken things waiting to be fixed, and the best solutions come when we work together." Xelthor's form shimmered with agreement. "The universe is indeed vast, Mechanic Chen, and there are always things that need repair." Sarah smiled, already thinking about the challenges ahead. She was still just a mechanic at heart, but now her garage extended to the stars themselves. There would be problems to solve, bridges to build, and countless machines waiting to tell her their stories. After all, every tool was a key, every repair a conversation, and every broken thing an opportunity to make something better than it had been before. That was true on Earth, and as Sarah had discovered, it was true among the stars as well. The universe was vast, complex, and sometimes broken, but that was okay. She was good at fixing things.